Hi guys, we're back at i57 and I'm standing here with Gnimsh while he's on a little bit of a break from casting duty. First of all, dude, before we talk about anything else, the tournament, we're into the Final Four now, it's obviously still going on. Has the tournament panned out anywhere close to the way the casters have been expecting it? What were the big upsets and who's still in the tournament that you're like, yeah, they're supposed to be there?
Oh, I think the tournament is going great, and we expected the top players to come to the top, and at the current top 4 is actually a lot of great players. And G2 unfortunately eliminated. We had 3 players in top 16, but Team Flow is still going strong, even though they're a new esports team. They had 3 members top 16, and Kamlan is still there in the top 4, defeating Pokrovac, who is one of the new upcoming great players, one of the pro players, let's say. So at the moment, I'm really happy with how the tournament is going on. We have Dog versus Powder at the very moment, so US versus Europe, and we'll see who wins.
Fair enough. And were there any players that you thought didn't make it into the top 8 that you were a little bit surprised about?
Well, you know, with the Swiss, with 103 people, and then the group stages, it's really hard to say that somebody will not make it. Like, obviously, you can look at Firebat, who played versus Dog round 1, and he didn't make it to day 2. Stan Sivka, like, there were a lot of great players who had a chance to just win the tournament. But I think I was really happy with the top 16 and who was there.
Fair dues. And what have you thought about the meta and the way people have actually been playing their deck so far in this tournament? Because I've been coming off of the esports stage whenever I can, and almost half of the games I've watched, there's been at least one caster going, I understand what deck they're trying to make, but these are really weird card choices. What's going on here? How's the meta shifting, and what are the games looking like here at Truesilver?
So this is a great question, because at the moment everybody thinks that metagame is super stale with the new expansion coming in maybe 1 month, and we didn't have new content for 5 months or something, so everybody was expecting standard Zoo, standard Patron, standard Secret Paladin, and those players brought absolutely surprising decks. Like, we have 3 different builds of Warlock. We had Handlock, we had weird mid-range Zoo, and mid-range Warlock which doesn't even have a name. And we had Priest, so this is really surprising what the players brought, and they are successful with the decks. Like, even Powder, everybody thinks Druid is the same, but Powder brought the SK Druid with Spectral Knight and Flame Jugglers, so this is a really surprising metagame, and I would not be sad to see it going on for maybe 1 or 2 months.
Is there any deck or decks in particular that particularly stand out that when you saw them being played you thought, oh my god, I want to give this a go, this looks like a lot of fun?
I definitely want to see how the Druid works for Powder. Like, the Spectral Knight, Flame Juggler Druid is really interesting, and you know, like, Druid was also not changed for the last year, so now with the new cards, it's really something interesting. And this Warlock from NAS with also like mid-range cards, even though the cards are obviously known in the metagame overall, but the special combination, I would like to play that deck and see how it works.
All right, well, we'll see if we can get our hands on that deck a little bit later, maybe do a video on that as well, which would be pretty awesome. You talked about the new expansion that's coming out. Before I talk about Standard and Wild mode, let's talk Old Gods. You've seen, obviously, all the cards so far. What are your thoughts, A, in terms of if there are any cards you like the best, and B, how it's going to push the competitive scene? A lot of the players have expressed quite a lot of happiness that actually we're sort of moving out of extreme RNG territory into a lot more calculation. How do you think it's going to be playing out?
I think, like, overall the new expansion looks really good right now, and if we talk about the expansion without talking about Standard or Wild, well, that will change a lot, but basically expansion itself, I really like the style. First, I like the darkness in the expansion, and like Old Gods returning, the whispers, all the evil creatures, tentacles, mutations. I think the theme is really nice, and the fact that we have those 4 Old Gods and we try to build decks around them will be a bit different, because right now we try to build decks, specific archetypes for the class, and now we take those archetypes out of the class and maybe we'll have them with the specific Old God. So we might have a Cthulhu Druid deck, Cthulhu Warlock deck, and also like the other Old Gods. So I think the overall idea and theme is really interesting, and I also like the fact that there's less RNG in those cards. It's just simple play, effect, and you can calculate what's going to happen.
By the way, you're sort of describing the archetypes. Does that make Reno Jackson the original Old God?
I guess, in a way, yes. Reno Jackson, an Old God with a hat. Makes sense.
All right, and so I'm really looking forward to how that's going to be playing out, and I'm probably going to end up, again, losing a hell of a lot on ladder as soon as these new cards come out. But then we've got something else put into the mix as well. We've got Standard and Wild mode, and this has the potential to really mix things up in the competitive scene as well. And again, in general, the players seem to really, really like the idea. But can you articulate from a caster's point of view and just sort of taking a look at the forest for the trees, if you will, what changes are we going to see in competitive Hearthstone moving towards BlizzCon at the end of the year?
Absolutely. So I think the standard change is really good because the metagame will be shifting much faster. And right now we had the same metagame more or less from the beginning of Hearthstone, with new cards being added, but only making some decks stronger and new decks maybe popping up. But with the standard, we'll have rotation, which means that we will get accustomed to some new decks that will get created, but then some sets will rotate out, so we'll not see specific cards. So for now, it will change a lot for this year at least. But coming forward to like 2017, 2018, we'll always have this rotation. And some of the cards will be used only for a year or maybe 2 years, and then they will rotate out. So this will make Hearthstone fresher. And also we have Wild, which is a different format, so we definitely will have tournaments which will be using sometimes Wild, sometimes Standard, and maybe both of them.
And do you think, sort of moving forward, this is why maybe we haven't seen so many buffs or nerfs to individual cards from Blizzard yet? Maybe we want to see the Standard and Wild formats introduced first before they start tinkering with the cards more? Do you expect Blizzard to actually be actively nerfing and buffing cards a little bit more than they are at the moment in the future?
I think they are going to drop a big nerf bomb in a way when they release all the cards for Whispers of the Old Gods, and when we get accustomed with the set, they will announce before Standard is actually being playable, they will announce a couple of nerfs. I think it will be around 10, maybe 10 plus, because if the standard set or classic set, however you call it, will stay, and it will stay in Standard, will be playable, you need to change some of the cards. And a lot of players are looking at Druid being one of the strongest classes even after the rotation. So I think like Innervate, maybe Keeper of the Grove, Giants, Big Game Hunter, those are the cards that are a bit troublesome and they might get changed.
And let's talk a little bit now, less about Hearthstone game and more about Gnimsh. Where were you before obviously bursting onto the scene on Hearthstone? First as a player, now as a caster. Talk us through your history pre-Hearthstone and also Hearthstone until you got to where you are today.
Well, it all started in 1994, and I'm not even kidding. Like 1994 was when I picked up RPGs for the first time, and I started playing card games in 1994. It was Tomb Trooper, my first card game, a Swedish creation. Then I transitioned into Magic, and I was playing card games casually since then, basically. And my main game though was WoW TCG, like Warcraft card game, and that was the game that actually took me from Poland to the world stage when I was traveling, playing big tournaments, and I got pretty good at it. At one point I was top 10 in the world when the game was at its eclipse, let's say. And then Hearthstone, which is my favorite game at the moment. I was playing for Cloud9 as a professional player, but at some point I just transitioned into casting. I got more and more casting gigs, and I had to make a decision. Do I want to continue as a pro player, or do I want to continue as a caster? That decision was really hard for me, but in the end I decided that as a caster I will be involved in almost every tournament, and I will be there from the beginning to the end. Caster always gets to the finals.
That's true, actually. You don't need to worry about bowing out in the round of 16. And how are you adjusting? Are you satisfied with your life as a caster at the moment, or is a part of you still thinking, well, in the future, if there's an opportunity, I'm going to come back competitively? Are you thinking about it for standard mode, or are you thinking about it at some point in the distant future?
I'm thinking about competitive play in a way to increase my casting skills. So it's not like I will drop casting even if I start being really good at the game. And let's say next month, April, I want to play a lot and get maybe top 100 legend if possible to prepare myself. Play a couple of online caps to get the experience of online caps and be back there. But even if I qualify for the preliminary tournament, I'll just decline it if I'm able to cast it, because I just want to continue casting. And to be able to tell the stories of the players, I need to be close to their level to be able to give them justice, and they put their lives on the line while playing tournaments and preparing for tournaments, so I want to be there for them and be able to put them on the pedestal.
That's fantastic to hear, and I completely understand the storyline, of course, from a casting point of view as well. Now, outside of casting, outside of Hearthstone, what kind of stuff do you do in your spare time? If people got a little bit of a glimmer into what the real Gnimsh is like away from the stage, what kind of stuff do you enjoy?
Well, I love mobile games, so I play a lot of mobile games like Puzzle & Dragons or Star Wars. There's like Galaxy of Heroes.
Okay,
so I always find like a new mobile game that I can play and chill after all the work on the computer I do. I also have a YouTube channel that I'm running with my fiance, so I'm recording stuff, she's doing the post-production, and we work together on the everyday basis, which this month was hard because I've been in Warsaw like a couple of days, so when I came home I was recording like 14 videos for the next couple of weeks, and then she was working with them. And I also watch a lot of anime, enjoy like TV shows, and read fantasy books. Recently I finished Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and this is a trilogy I can definitely recommend.
And speaking of what you said just now as well, there's a little bit of a story there too, because you met your fiance through Hearthstone. Why don't you go ahead and tell us, for those of us that don't know, what that story is and how you guys came to be where you are today, because it was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got introduced actually through ECOP. ECOP introduced me and my fiance, and it was February last year. We started talking online. She was living in the UK at the time, and she's from Poland, but she was living in the UK for like 4 years. And we started talking, and after a month, we were at the stage where we thought like, I love you as well. So we basically decided that we just need to meet. And she flew to Poland for a couple of days, and we were able to hang out and just talk and see that if it's real or not, if it's just internet. Yeah. And it actually worked out fantastically. So after that, when she was flying back to UK, like she was crying, I was crying, like we couldn't live separate. So we did everything to be able to live together. And I think in April she just moved in to my place. She just came back to Poland, and since then we live together. And I actually proposed in November, I think, at BlizzCon. She accepted. So right now we are happily living together and working together.
That's an awesome story, and yeah, fantastic news from the Hearthstone front to warm the hearts all over the world, and hopefully you guys will be doing a lot more cool stuff on your YouTube channel and also when you're out working in the future as well. So thanks so much for hanging around and taking the time out to chat to me, mate. Anything you want to say, any shout outs you want to give before we close out?
Oh, absolutely. So big shout out to my fiance, obviously, because she's helping me so much. And in a way, she saved my life as well, because she diagnosed me with hypothyroidism, and I started to taking pills, which helped me a lot with my life. So that was really big in my life as well, because right now I'm feeling great because of her, and she's taking care of me. So big shout out to her. Like without her, I might not be here at the very moment. And obviously shout out to Cloud9 for supporting me so much in the past. Like we are not together right now, but they were a huge part of my esports career. And a shout out to all the viewers. So thank you so much for watching Hearthstone, and I will continue doing what I'm doing and try to improve.
Great, well thank you very much for taking the time out to chat. We wish you all the best, not just in casting this tournament, but your future stuff as well. And no doubt we'll meet again soon. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks,
we'll be back with more interviews from I57 in a little bit. Take care, and we'll see you soon.